In today's lesson video, we are going to be looking over the written methods for subtraction in Years 3 and Year 4. You can choose to watch the whole video from the beginning to end, or you can skip forward to the chapter which is more dedicated to the expectations in Year 4 if you wish to. Okay, so for question 1, 385 take away 243, I have represented the number that I'm starting with in my place value chart. I have 3 hundreds, I have 8 tens, and I have 5 ones. And to subtract, I'm simply going to take away from each of the columns. I'm going to start with my ones in 243, and I'm simply going to take 3 of my ones away. I'm going to take them away. I'm just going to pop them down the bottom so you can see that I have taken them away. Then I need to take away 4 tens because there's 4 tens in 243. So I'm taking the 4 tens away. And I need to take away 2 hundreds. So you can see at the bottom, I've taken away 2 hundreds, 4 tens, 3 ones. I've taken away my 243 from my original number, 385. And what am I left with? I'm left with 100, 4 tens, and 2 ones. So my final answer is 142. Let's take a look at doing that with a written method. Here we have 385 take away 243. Using the written method, I would make sure that I line up my digits above each other so that my ones, tens and hundreds are lined up above each other. Just like in my place value chart with the place value counters. I start with my 5s, and I always start by taking away the number below from the number above. So I'm starting with my 5 and I'm taking away the 3 from my 5. So just like when I had my 5 ones counters, I took 3 away from the 5. This time, rather than taking 3 away from this number, I've got 5 take away 3. I'm going to write the number down. So when I subtract 3 from my 5, I'm left with 2. With the place value counters, I actually took 3 away from my 5 till I was left with 2. Here I'm writing down, I'm representing what happened visually. So 5, if I took 3 away, I'd be left with 2. Over here, I've got 8 tens. If I took 4 tens away from my 8, I'm left with 4. And if I took 2 hundreds away from my 3, I'm left with 1. So over here on the left, I'm writing what happened with the place value counters, but I'm writing it using the standard written method. The written method is your goal for Year 3. You want to get to moving away from the counters and moving towards writing it down. But to help you understand what you're doing, use the place value counters until you understand that you are subtracting ones, tens and hundreds, and you understand what you're doing. Have a go at the 3 questions on your sheet now. Make sure that you set out your numbers correctly. Use place value counters or draw using the place value counters until you feel confident to move to the written method without using the counters. So for question 2, we're doing 465 take away 317. So I have my 400s, 6 tens and 5 ones in my place value chart using place value counters, and I'm going to subtract my 317. So I'm going to start with my ones, and instantly I can see I need to take 7 away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I don't have enough. I don't have enough to take them away. So I'm going to have to borrow from my tens column, and I need to exchange those down, and I can now take away my extra 2. I now need to take 1 10 away from my tens, and I now need to take away 3 hundreds from my hundreds. So if we look at the bottom, I have 300, 110 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've taken away my 317. What am I left with? I'm left with 100, 4 tens and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ones. My final answer is 148. Let's look at what that looks like when I do it with a written method. Question 2. 465 take away 317. We've looked at how to calculate using the place value counters, so now I'm going to use the written method, which is what we're moving towards. First thing I do is to set the numbers out so that they are lined up. I'm going to write in the place value of each of the numbers, and then I start with my ones and I need to subtract. 5 take away 7. Now, when you had the place value counters, it was very easy to see that you needed to take 7 away, but you only had 5. So it was easy to see there that you needed to borrow, that we needed to exchange 1 10 for 10 ones. When you move to the written method, you might not always spot this. Sometimes we see 5 take away 7 and our brains automatically tell us 7 take away 5 because we can't do 5 take away 7. And sometimes our brains override and automatically tell us to do 7 take away 5. You must remember that the top number must be bigger than the bottom number. I can't take 7 away from my 5. I need to borrow a 10. Just like the place value counters, when I don't have enough here, I can borrow from the next column. So I'm going to borrow 110. So I cross that out and I'm going to write down that I've borrowed 1. So I now only have 5 tens and my borrowed 10 is going to come here. If I add 10 to 5, I get 15. So this is now 15 ones, just like we saw with the counters. I have 15 ones. I can take 7 ones away now. 15 take away 7 is 8. You need to know your number bonds to 20 to be able to do this method. Okay, if you want to be able to do this quickly, learn your number bonds to 20. If you're finding it hard to do something like 15 take away 7, then go and revise, go and practice your number bonds to 20. You can type it in on Google. There's loads of games, but get good at adding and subtracting with numbers up to 20. So now I'm going to move to my tens. 5 tens take away 1 10, leaves me with 4 10. And I go to my hundreds. 4 hundreds take away 3 hundreds, leave me with 100. So my answer is 148, just as it was with the place value counters. Have a go at the 3 questions on your worksheet now. Make sure you line up your digits correctly. Use the place value counters if that will help you to see when you need to borrow and exchange. And perhaps if you're using the place value counters, you could also use the written method, and so you can cross-check it. Finally, I have 423 subtract 374. So I have my 423 using counters. I have 400s, 2 10s, 3 1s, and I need to subtract 374. So I'm first going to start by taking away my 4 1s. Straight away I can see I don't have enough 1s in my 1s column, so I'm going to need to borrow from my 10s. So I'm going to take 1 10s counter and I'm going to swap that for 10 1s counters. And now I have enough to take 4 away. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to move these up. Now I need to take 7 10s away from my 10s column, and I can see I only have 1 10s. I don't have enough to take 7 10s away. So I'm going to borrow 1. I'm going to borrow 100. And I'm going to change my 100s counter for 10 10s counters. And now I have enough to take my 7 10s away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now I'm going to take my 300s away. 1, 2, 3. If I look at the bottom, let's just check. I've taken 300s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tens. 1, 2, 3, 4. 374 has been taken away. What am I left with? I've got no hundreds. I've got 4 tens, so I've got 40. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm left with 49. So my answer is 49. Let's have a look at what that looks like using a standard written method. We line up the digits. Making sure to line the digits up in the right columns so that our ones, tens and hundreds are clearly in different columns. Just like the place value counters, when I start with my 3, take away 4, I see that I don't have enough here to take 4 ones away. So I need to borrow a 10. So my 10, which was, there were 2 tens, there's now only 1 10 because I'm going to borrow 1 and add it to my 3 ones. I now have 13 ones. And 13 ones take away 4 ones is 9 ones. Now I'm going to go back to my tens column and I can see I need to take 7 tens away, but I only have 1 10. I don't have enough, so I'm going to need to borrow from my hundreds column. I'm going to borrow 100, so this is now only 300s, and I'm going to bring it over next to my 10. So I now have 11 tens. 11 tens take away 7 tens is 4 tens, and 300s take away 300s is nothing. So I can leave it blank or I can put my 0 in. Either way, my number is 49, and you can see how that matches with our place value counter calculation over on the right hand side. So have a go with your next 3 questions. This time you're going to be borrowing more than once, so make sure that your digits are lined up. Make sure you're checking if the number above is smaller than the number below, and then make sure if you're borrowing that you cross out, you write in how many you've got left, and then you bring that borrowed number over. Give those questions a go now. Here we have a word problem, and I'm going to want to highlight the important bits of information. So Jaden had a piece of rope that measured 412 centimetres. He cut off 368 centimetres to make a tyre swing. How long was the other piece of rope? So he's cut a piece off from his 412. So he started with 412 and he subtracted 368. He cut off 368. What was he left with? So we're going to start in our ones column. 2 subtract 8. Well, I can't do that, can I? I don't have enough. I don't have 8 ones to take away from my 2 ones, so I'm going to need to borrow a 10. Now, I've only got 1 10, so if I take that away, I'm left with no 10s. So I'm going to bring the 1 10 over to my 2. I've now got 12. 12 ones take away 8 ones is 4 ones. If I go back to my tens column, I need to take 6 tens away from no 10s. Well, I definitely haven't got enough, so I'm going to have to borrow from my hundreds column. I had 400s, I'm now left with 300s, and I'm going to bring my 100 over, so I now have 10 tens. 10 tens take away 6 tens is 4 tens, and 300s take away 300s is no hundreds. Jaden was left with 44 centimetres of rope after cutting off 368 centimetres to make a tyre swing. Can you have a go at the question on your worksheet? Make sure you highlight the information, make sure you figure out what you're subtracting from what, and then line up your digits correctly. Use the place value counter method if you need to, or see if you can have a go at using the written method first. Good luck with that. So here I have 4,258 take away 3,141, and we are going to subtract these using our formal written method. So I'm going to first make sure that I write the digits out in columns, and I'm going to add the place value headings so we can see that all of our digits are clearly lined up in separate columns. And then I'm going to start from my smallest value, which is the ones, and I'm going to start with the number at the top, and I'm going to subtract the number underneath it. Start with 8, take away 1, I have 7. Let's go to my tens column. Start with 5, take away 4, I have 1. Go to my hundreds column. Start with 2, take away 1, I have 1, and go to my thousands column. 4, take away 3 is 1. So nice and simple. Make sure that you write your numbers so that they are evenly spaced out and that the number below it is in the right column. Make sure you understand the value of every digit and you set it out correctly and clearly, and that you subtract the number underneath from the number above. Have a go at the first questions on your worksheet, trying to use the written method. If you're not so confident with the written method at this point, go back to the green slides and have a look at how you can use place value counters to help support you to do this written method. Question 2. Again, I'm going to set my numbers out clearly. I'm going to space them out so that they don't get muddled up, and I'm going to write in my place value headings to help me see the ones, tens, hundreds and thousands. Now I always start with the number that's worth the least, which is my ones, and I'm going to start, remember I start the number at the top, 3, take away 8. If the number above is smaller than the number below, we're not able to subtract. We need to go to our neighbour and borrow. So 3 ones, I don't have enough here to take 8 ones away, so I need to borrow a 10. I've got 2 tens. I'm going to take one of them away, so I'm left with 1 10, and I can bring my 1 10 over to my ones column. 13 take away 8 is 5. I go back to my tens column. 1 10 take away 1 10 is no 10, so I put my 0 in. 300s take away 200s is 100, and 5,000s take away 3,000s is 2,000s. I have my answer. So in the next 3 questions, you're just going to be borrowing from one of your digits. So make sure that you really check whether the number above is larger than the number below. Do you have enough to subtract from? Do you need to borrow? Have a go at the next 3 questions on your worksheet. If you need to use the place value counter method, then go ahead and do that. But try and start to work using this written method now. Question 3. Again, I'm going to set out my digits so that they are nice and clear and that they are lined up with the digits above them. I'm going to add in my place value headings, and I'm going to start calculating from the smallest value, from my ones column. Straight away I can see that my 9 is bigger than the 3. I can't subtract 9 ones from 3 ones, so I'm going to have to borrow a 10. 6 tens becomes 5 tens. 13 take away 9 is 4. Now I'm going to do 5 take away 8, which again I can't do. This 8 is bigger than the 5, so I need to go to my hundreds and borrow 100. So this will now be 100. I now have 15 tens take away 8 tens, which is 7 tens. And now I go to my hundreds column. And again now, because I've borrowed, the number at the bottom 2 is larger than the 1. I need to borrow 1,000. So my 6,000 becomes 5,000. And this now becomes 1100s. 1100s take away 200s is 900s. And 5,000 take away 4,000 is 1,000. So you can see you might have to borrow from all your digits. Just make sure you do it step by step, that you cross out the number you're borrowing from and write down the new number. And then make sure that you're always checking if the number above is large enough to subtract from. So the next 3 questions on your worksheet, you will have to borrow from more than 1 digit. So make sure you are being really accurate and recording each step carefully and slowly as you go. So have a go at those last 3 questions before we have a look at the word problem. Helena and Jacob wanted to do 3,000 jumping jacks to raise money. They did 1,687 in the first week. That's pretty impressive. How many jumping jacks did they have left to do? So they wanted to do 3,000. So that's the number that we will start with. And they've done 1,687 already. We need to subtract the 1,687 from our 3,000 to figure out what's left. I'm writing in my place value headings to help me. And now I need to subtract. You'll notice here that actually I've got a lot of numbers at the bottom that are larger than the numbers at the top. So I'm going to have to do a lot of borrowing. So if I'm starting with 0 take away 7, I can't take 7 ones away from no 10s, from no ones. But when I go to my tens column to borrow one, I can't borrow one. There's nothing there. I then move along to the hundreds. I'm going to borrow 100. I can't move and borrow anything from there either. I keep moving until I find something I can borrow. So I can borrow 1,000. So I'm first of all going to cross it out and write 2,000 because I'm going to borrow my 1,000. The 1,000 that I borrow, I bring it here next to my hundreds. Okay, so I've taken 1,000 and I've lent it to my hundreds. So in my hundreds, I now have 10 hundreds. Now that I have 10 hundreds, I'm able to borrow. So I'm going to borrow 100. That's going to become 900s. And I'm going to borrow 100 next to my 10. I now have 10 tens. I can borrow one from there now. So I cross it out and leave it as 9 tens. And I can bring my 1 10 over to my ones. I now have 10 ones. So now I can start to subtract. 10 ones take away 7 ones is 3 ones. 9 tens take away 8 tens is 1 10. 900 take away 600 is 300. 2,000 take away 1,000 is 1,000. And I have my final answer. It's 1,313. So have a go at the word problem on your worksheet now. Check what the numbers are in your question. What number are you starting with? What number are you subtracting? And then make sure you lay out your digits correctly. See if you can do it just using a written method, but use the idea of place value counters to help you if you still need that support. Good luck with that. If you've enjoyed this lesson video, then please have a look at our website where you can sign up for access to loads more free resources to support maths learning in Key Stage 2. So that's years 3 to 6. I started doing these lesson videos in response to the school closure. We already have a year 6 app on the market, but the years 3 to 4 and 5 are all being designed especially to help you with your homeschooling. So if you want to keep up to date with more resources as I make them, then check out the website and you'll be able to sign up at www.pocketprivatetutor.co.uk. We're also on Facebook and Instagram where I'm posting loads of different puzzles and tips and tricks that you can have a go at with your family at home. Hope you've enjoyed the lesson.